Hello and welcome to Calligraphy Art inspired by Kinda Hibrawi. So before we get started, I want to have a note about calligraphy materials, especially the pens. Now, if you can get a calligraphy pen, that's a pen that's made specifically for this activity. You can see here the shape of its tip is what makes it so special. It's got flat sides. So when you press it on the paper, it makes a little line instead of a dot. There's a diagonal line, a vertical line, and another diagonal going the other way. When you drag it sideways, you can make little squares with it. And that's normally how calligraphers or calligraphy artists start their little lines of writing with those squares. So if you get one of these, play around with it. Try to get that diagonal angle with your pen, whether you're right-handed or left-handed. Try to get that kind of diagonal angle, leaning to the right. So when you hold your pen at that angle and you make letters or lines with it, it'll give you interesting shapes. Instead of regular lines, it'll give you these diamond-shaped lines. Pretty cool. And when you do curvy shapes with it, those look different too. So when you hold it at that angle, make a U shape, it looks a little bit different from a regular U shape that you might draw with a pencil. We're going to be using both the straight lines and curvy lines in our activity today. The next kind of marker you might look at is a Sharpie marker. And there's a couple kinds of Sharpie marker. First off, when you see a Sharpie, it normally has a fine tip. It looks like this. Some people call it a bullet tip. And that's your everyday, normal, regular Sharpie that you can find just about anywhere. But if you look a little closer, you might be able to find one that is a chisel tip. What is a chisel tip? Well, it's got that shape to it. Why do they call it a chisel tip? Well, funny you should ask. These are chisels right here. If you look at the end of them, it might give you a clue. There's a chisel tip. Let's take a look at that. Oh, there we go. I'm starting to see a little resemblance there. Hey, I'm a chisel tip marker. Well, I'm a chisel. I'm like your grandpappy. You're named after me. Anyway, that's a chisel tip marker. And when you hold it diagonally, you get that same kind of line. And we can make those beautiful shapes for our letters. Getting that diagonal. This is how I would do it with my right hand. If you're right-handed, you will hold it this way. And hold it that way when you're drawing your letters and you get these shapes. And that's what makes it different from a regular fine tip like that. You see the difference there. Next we have the black letter marker. These you can find just about anywhere, even at the hardware store. And it also has a chisel tip. You can hold it just right and you can get that diagonal line, or if we hold it sideways, we can get our square shapes, our boxes. And when you hold it diagonally, you can make those nice calligraphy letters with it. So we'll be using these kind of shapes, these straight lines, curvy lines. So when you get your marker, if you get a chisel tip one, play around with it for a little while until you get comfortable holding it on that angle. This is the kind we have at school. It's that chisel tip. Remember, it's just shaped like a chisel. There we go. So I want to hold it so it makes that diagonal line. Now I noticed something about this type of marker, and that is it has a tendency to bloom. When you touch it to the paper likes to soak up the ink and it kind of spreads out or blooms. So you've got to be aware of that when you are using it. And while it's soaking into the paper like that, it's actually going through the paper too. So I'll practice my letters here. I'm still getting those nice kind of thick lines that I like. But there's that chisel tip. Let's see. Yeah, it's going through the paper, so make sure you got an extra paper under your paper to protect your writing surface. So that's about it for the kind of markers you should look for. If you've got a calligraphy marker, a Sharpie, or a black letter, you're doing pretty good. But if all you can find is a fine tip, that's fine too. So, one more time, we're going to need some index cards or cardstock, something to color with. You're going to need a pencil with an eraser and a chisel tip marker of some sort. So go ahead and get your stuff and meet me back here when you're ready. Did you get everything? I hope you did. Alright, let's get started. So I've got my 2 index cards right now, or 2 pieces of paper, just because we want to be protecting our table. I'm going to start by measuring 4 little lines here. See how I measured 4 spaces? That's going to be my first letter, the letter P. If you need to pause it and rewind it, go ahead. Second letter is E, P-E. Next letter. This is a fancy letter A. See how it comes down diagonally? There's our A, and our middle part is going to look like that. It's going to be slightly diagonal. Next, I'm going to make a letter C, and it's the same height as my other letters. Oh, but if you make a mistake, go ahead and correct it. Don't let it get away from you. You can take your time, make them look beautiful. Last, I have another letter E. P-E-A-C-E. That spells peace. Alright, so now I want to try and trace that with my chisel tip marker. I'm going to hold it on that diagonal angle to make those beautiful letters. So here I go. Trace it down. Alright, I don't know about y'all, but I find it pretty relaxing to do this. Yep, and check your paper underneath. Make sure it's not going through and staining up the table. Next we'll do another word, and that's the same word, but in Arabic. The word is salam. So we start with S, A, L, A, A. That's 2 A's in a row. And M. Alright, now we'll trace it with our marker, and we're going to hold it on that diagonal angle. There we go. Alright, so now we've got peace and salam. Let's try and write the word one more time. This time, it's the Arabic word for peace, salam, but we will write it in the Arabic written language. So I start with a line that comes in and down diagonally. Then it's going to curve up like a letter U, and another curve like a letter W, and a big curve that comes out with a long tail. Next, we'll put a little comma-like shape up there, almost like a comma. And over here, we start like a triangle, we come in and swing it down to make a tail, like that. Now you might have noticed Arabic is written from right to left, so that's different from how we write English. Then I come in and I trace with my chisel tip. Trying to get those shapes just right. Remember to pause and rewind this as many times as you need to. So now I've had some practice. I'm going to try a new one. Done my practice on the other sheet, so now I'm ready to do a final calligraphy art. I'm going to find where I think about the middle of my paper is, and I'm going to write the word salam in Arabic one more time, just because I think it's so pretty. It's my favorite one of these. Take your time. If you have a little mistake, it's better to make the mistake with pencil, because you can erase it. There's my other shape there. And last, my kind of triangle shape with a tail. There we go. Now, I am not an expert in writing in Arabic. I don't speak Arabic fluently, but I did learn this word. So if you know someone who's fluent in Arabic and they can teach you a better way to write it, by all means, get them in touch with me. I would like to learn from a better source. But I'm just sharing with you. This is my method for writing the word. There we go. There's salam. And I'm going to put it in English characters underneath too. So SALAAM / PEACE. So next, we're going to work on outlining our words with different colors. You might have markers, you might have crayons, paint, whatever you have available. Or if you're an in-person student, then it'll be whatever I have for you on that day. So I've been outlining my shapes again and again until I came out to a border. And for this one, I also started by outlining the shapes of my letters. This one with crayons here. Then I came back and started filling in the spaces around the letters with a squiggly design. And I even used the complementary colors to the colors I used for outline there. So there's the first one. And the second one with complementary colors. See, red and green, blue and orange. All right, and then there's an extra challenge here, if you get done with that early, is creating a decorative border. So I'll show you first my pattern that I made. If you can go to the corners and make this kind of U shape, or it could be a W, it's up to you. Then we're going to curve back the other way, make a pointy end and another curve, which will come back around and make that upside down W shape. And then the pattern repeats. So we make like a wing shape or a claw shape on one side, a pointy part, and then another wing or claw shape. The upside down W, and back around. So you can see what it looks like upside down and right side up there. Some people think it looks kind of like an eagle about to take off, or maybe some sort of spiky plant growing out of the ground. I don't know, but it looks pretty cool. So if you want to do this, this is a little extra challenge to give yourself. You can use whatever you want to fill it in. Paint, markers, crayon, whatever. But if you're going to try it, try to make sure you go all the way around your artwork. It will take some time. But in the end, I hope you have something you're proud of, something you like, and I want to wish you peace and salam. See you in the next video.